Welcome everyone to 30 Minutes Robotic Milking Edition, episode number 16. I'm your host, Marcia Andres, dairy science professor and extension specialist at the University of Minnesota. With me today is also your co-host, Jim Sulfur, dairy extension educator at the St. Cloud Regional Office. Hi, Jim.
Hi, and welcome everyone.
Thank you for being here. So first, before we bring our guest for the webinar today, I'd like to remind you, if you're watching this as a recording on YouTube, you can join us for the live virtual discussion by registering at z.umn.edu/30minrm and then join us for the episode. Also like to remind you that we'll be reading your questions and comments for the producer to respond to. Jim and I would ask that you type your question in the Q&A box that you can find at the bottom of your screen. Please do not use the chat box because we will not be monitoring the chat box. So appreciate if you follow this to help us out. So I'm very pleased today to invite to join us our producer guest this morning. And that's Kristin from Wisconsin. She's joining us to tell us about their family's dairy operation in Wisconsin. And Kristin is a very busy lady, so I'm very pleased that she was able to take some time out of her busy schedule to join us. Hi, Kristin.
Hello.
I can see you, yes. So we'll walk through your pictures of your farm, and then we'll open up for the Q&A. I'll come back for that. So thank you for being here again.
All right. So as Marcia said, my name is Kristin. I am representing my family's dairy, which is Minglewood Inc. We are located about an hour from the Twin Cities metro area in Wisconsin. So this first picture here, just to get into things, is a layout of what our farm looks like today. We milk 1,200 cows between two facilities, 480 of them being milked in our robotic facility, which is this facility right here. And then we're milking about 750 down in our conventional parlor setup. We also raise all of our own feed, and we raise our calves until about 5 to 6 months of age before they go to a grower. And then they come home at about 21, 22 months of age. So we built the robot facility in 2018. So it's been about 3.5 years now. And we feel that we're still learning every day with our robot facility, but I've also learned a lot. So this layout right here is what the barn looks like. You will notice our manure flow and airflow both go to the north end of the barn. So what is also unique about our barn is the roof line runs east and west. It does not run north and south. That is for future expansion purposes. This barn is laid out to be doubled with another 8 robots. You'll also see how our robots are laid in, and we'll go into that more in detail. They are in at an angle going off of how cattle tubs work. So the cows enter into the robot. They're not having to go into that robot straight on. They're going in at an angle, and our cow flow is absolutely phenomenal. It's very rare that our cows are not pushing on one another to get into the robot. So we've seen really good efficiencies because of that. So we are also a guided flow system, which this is the selection gate right here. So based on milking permissions, they'll come up and either get sorted to milk or sorted to feed. We have not had an issue with our guided flow barn. We really felt that guided flow was the way to go for us and our herd goals. Because today we're averaging between 103 and 105 pounds of milk per cow in our robot facility, along with a 4.5 fat and a 3.3 protein. So we are meeting our goals, but we always want to keep raising the bar to meet those goals. So we felt guided flow was the way to go for us from an efficiency standpoint. We also felt there was huge benefits to it when it came to feed costs. Today we were averaging, yesterday when I looked, we were at 4.75 pounds a pellet average fed. And we're just feeding corn gluten pellets to our cows today. We also do feed a boost pellet from our feed supplier, but we feed maybe 7,000 to 8,000 pounds of that second feed a month. So it's not a huge contributor at the end of the day. So I think that's all on that. So this is inside the robot rooms. This is what you will find them looking like on a daily basis, 365 days a year. So they're in here at the angle. The robots are offset by about 2 inches. So the arms do not touch each other, but otherwise they're in there at that angle, and it's worked very, very well for us. And I don't think I'd want my robots laid in there any other way. As far as maintenance goes, we try to do as much maintenance in-house as possible. My husband does probably 90% of it, along with some of our herdsmen. They do some of the more basic work. My husband's a mechanic by trade. So he definitely understands us better than me as a cow person does. But this is what you'll find our robot rooms looking like pretty much all the time. This is a picture of the barn, so you can see our ventilation system. We do have a VES positive pressure system in this barn. There's, I believe it's 85 fans in all in the facility. Constant breeze of 7.5 miles an hour is what goes through the facility. So of course we have no flies, all of that fun stuff. So our first winter we were in this barn is when the polar vortex came through. And this barn never got below 29 degrees, which is how it was designed. We did not put any electricity to any of the waterers in this facility. And every once in a while you might have one in our separation pen that will freeze just because there's not cows in there all the time. But other than that, we don't tend to have freezing issues. In the summertime, this is also, of course, the place you want to be. Be 10 to 15 degrees cooler on any given day under those fans. We also have 2 cow brushes per pen. And we had put cow brushes in a couple of our pens in our conventional barn, and just loved how much the cows loved them. So we went ahead and put them in this facility as well. This is what our separation pen looks like. If I was to do it all over again, I would make my separation pen a lot bigger than what it is today. We have 3 free stalls here, a drinker, and then 10 headlocks. This pen is used way more than we ever thought it would be. We sort all of our vet check cows into here on Mondays. Hoof trimming on Tuesday, they all get sorted into here. Wednesday, when we dry off, they get sorted into here. And then Thursdays are off-sync breeding day, so we sort them all into here. Our big philosophy is we do not want to have to be out in the pen any more than we have to be. So there are days that, especially vet check and off-sync, that this pen gets a little fuller than we'd like to see it. And we added another section of headlocks that we can set for vet check day right on the other side of this pen, which has helped. But if I was to do it all over again, I would probably double it in size as far as stall beds go. Our foot bath, this was a big topic when we were designing our barn. We spent about 2 years designing our barn. So a lot of people said we should put a center cross alley in. We thought about that. But at the end of the day, all of a sudden, if my foot bath is going to be at the end of the pen and they're used to taking that cut across in the middle of the pen, how am I going to get them to go through the foot bath 3 times a week? So what we did, this is the only crossover. So one day, when, like in this picture, they were running the foot bath. all we did was we had to swing a gate to close off the normal crossover. And days we're not running the footbath, we'll just swing that gate over so they can't go through the footbath and they go through the normal crossover. And it's worked very well for us. The second picture is of our feed pusher. So you can see in this picture the kind of before and after where it's pushed and hasn't pushed. We do push every 2 hours. It equates to 11 push-ups a day is what we do. And we do that in our other barn as well. We really, originally we had bought the Joe's feed pushers, but then the Val Metal one came out on the market. And we went and saw one in operation, really felt there was something to having the feed get turned over every time it gets pushed up with the auger. So it follows a magnet in the floor every 3 meters. The magnets do pop out every once in a while. We'll find them. Usually if we're missing one, we'll go straight to the skid steer bucket that comes in and cleans the mangers out in the morning. And we'll find them on the bottom of the skid steer bucket is where we will find them. So it works, has its pros and cons. So these are cow brushes. If you want to play the video, you can. They absolutely love them. It's very rare for us not to see them being used. And our biggest thing we noticed originally when we put the cow brushes in our freestall facility, we had it in our pre-fresh heifer group. I used to hire college students to come in and clip top lines every spring, but we put the brush in. We were able to quit doing that. It just really cleans them up and just makes them look a lot nicer. So with that, I think we're ready for questions and answers.
Thank you. Great overview. It's always fun to watch those cows using the brushes, and the cows are so clean. I mean, it's amazing. It's always a pleasure to see your dairy. So now we're going to open up for questions and answers. We don't have open questions from the audience yet. Jim, do you have any questions you have in mind right now?
Yeah, Kristin, I've got a question. There's not a lot of farms that have hybrid systems where they have a parlor and a robotic system. Do you want to expand on why you did that? And then what do you think the advantages are of that hybrid system?
So we knew going into this, we were milking 800 cows before we expanded to 1,200 cows. We really thought there was merit to keeping our parlor running. So a few of the reasons how we operate, all of our cows fresh in and they are milked in the parlor for a minimum of 7 to 10 days before they're moved out of the fresh pen. You know, and I wasn't ready to shut my parlor down, and I wasn't ready to go 100% robots either. So we manage all of our fresh cows, all of our treated cows down in our parlor facility still today. There is no any animal that has to be treated with antibiotics that have a milk withhold. They all go back to the parlor. But if she's treated with a drug that doesn't have a milk withhold, she'll stay up in the robot facility. But we just really felt there was merit to still running our parlor because we have the classic robot. We don't have the new V300. And I have a number of cows today that just won't work in the robots that we have because of, you know, close rear teat placement. And the other big thing we learned along the way is there's some cows, their personalities just do not do well with the robot.
Question about switching to feeding now. So what ration do you feed? I don't know if they want to know more about the PMR or what maybe what you're feeding the robot. You mentioned corn gluten pellets, but
right. So yeah. So as far as our ration goes, we're heavy forage diets, or our diet's about 60% forage, heavier on the corn silage than haylage, of course. We do feed palm fat. And then we have our protein mix. So I guess if you have questions on, you know, I kind of need to know more what you're looking at for the ration, as far as what you're really looking for. And if you have any questions later on, I can answer those. If you just shoot Marcia an email, we can talk further.
I think some of the main points you made, Robert, how much forage and then you feeding the palm fatty acids, that's really maybe a lot of people now increasing fat percent in the diet are feeding those. So maybe that was related to that. Jim, the next question you can go maybe.
Kristin, do you want to follow up? Can I just follow up on that? Maybe part of
No.
it is what's your ration compare to your parlor cows to your robot cows? Is it the same TMR, PMR, or is it different?
It's pretty much the same. The only differences really is we're taking out and accounting for the pellets we're feeding in the robots. I won't even say it's necessarily a true PMR. You can look at that both ways, but it's very close to what we feed our cows in the conventional barn.
Okay. The question here is, what was your goal or idea behind putting those robots at an angle?
So the goal behind that, so our dealership had put in one new setup, the way ours are set in there, and we went over and saw it before we were in construction. And it was just really the cow flow. We wanted the cows to be able to flow into these robots better. We wanted to see better just cattle flow. And we have big cows. It's for some cows, going straight in and kind of having that K flow was a little bit difficult. So we set them in at an angle, strictly thinking cow flow was going to be better, that it was going to flow like a cattle tub. And that's exactly what it's done.
Excellent. I think you briefly talked about having the other barn, but we didn't specifically talk about how you prepare your heifers to enter the robot.
Right. So what we do, we'll kind of talk about mature cows and heifers, how we do this. So everything's in the fresh pen, minimum of 7 days. She's a mature cow that's been in the robots before. We're probably going to move her up to the robots unless her udder has completely fallen apart or something. But as far as heifers go, we used to move them up at the same time we moved the cows. But what we started finding is that they were becoming chronic fetch cows, and they're just becoming a lot of work. We didn't have a spot to put a training stall in to train our heifers. So what we started doing is we have a vaccination that's given around 35 days in milk. So the heifers now will either come up a week before or a week after that vaccination. So they've been in milk 30 to 40 days roughly before they come to the robots now. And then what we do, because we still have a milking staff, so Wednesdays we move new cows in. So starting Wednesday, when our morning shift gets done, every milking shift goes up to the robot barn and they make sure the new cows are going through, and they do that through Sunday. We used to just do it through Saturday morning, but then we found the wheels kind of fell off over the weekend. So we extended it through Sunday, and it solved a lot of those problems. And we have a list on the bulletin board in the parlor, and we make several copies of it. The milkers all can grab their list and go up there. We also, to make it easier and faster for these guys to come in and push these cows, so they're not spending, an hour and a half looking for these cows, we spray paint them a different color every week. And it's not just a little spray paint on their head. So this week's color was green. So their heads and shoulders are all painted green this week. So they're easily identifiable. So they can just go up there, they can find those cows quick, and they're not, hunting around for ear tags, is what we found has worked for us.
So, and then you have also a separate heifer pen at the robot barn.
Yep.
And so, so how many times a day you think on average they actually fetching those heifers through those first 5 days or whatever?
So the milking shift does it, 3 times a day.
3 times a day. Okay.
Yep. But then overall, for fetching, we'll go through and we'll look at that list 4 to 5 times a day. It's never a lot of cows on that list, but we just find, we take it in smaller bites, and do it more frequently throughout the day is what's worked for us.
And the mature cows, do you know how often they get fetched?
We'll go
Maybe.
through that list to, every time someone goes up and fetches, 4 to 5 times a day. We'll go through that, we're just gonna catch whoever needs to be fetched at that time. But typically it might just be a handful of cows.
Okay.
Okay, the next question is related. Do you just want to repeat what you had said about the separation pen size wise, what it currently is, and how would you would change that? Somebody
Yep.
just wants some clarification.
Yep. So we currently have 3 free stalls there and 10 headlocks. I would double the stall beds for sure and go to 6 stall beds from 3. The headlocks, because we've made another section outside of the pen we use already, when there is too many cows in there, I would probably take it to a minimum of 15 headlocks, but it'd be easier just to take it to 20 and just put 2 more sections of locks in.
All right, we did get somebody typing in the chat. I usually don't go there, but I saw it and it's somebody I know, so I'm gonna read the question. So how has labor been impacted? Number of people, in terms of how many people, how many people you need on this robot bar compared to conventional for milking cows and things like
Yep.
that? What's the training like? And do people prefer to work in the parlor versus the robot barn?
Right. So that's the loaded question, right? When you go
Right.
to robots is labor. So we initially thought we were going to do this without adding any labor. We were about 3 months in and we realized that we had guys, they were running back and forth between the parlor and the robot barn all day long. And we needed one person who was just going to be in charge of the robots. So that happened. Let's see, we started in November. That happened in February. It was a very rough couple of months there to figure it all out. So we did find we needed to add about a half a position for our 8 robots with how we were already structured today. So how the position has been oriented as far as staffing the robot barn, Noah, who was with us from the beginning here until actually a couple weeks ago, he worked 5 to 1 Monday through Friday, 8-hour days. Some days were less than 8 hours, some days were more than 8 hours, just depending on the workflow for the day. But also my other 3 herdsmen are trained on how to run the robot barns. So we do have some cross training that is done there. As far as people preferring to work in the parlor versus the robot barn, I can't necessarily answer that question because I don't have people that are going back and forth between the 2 constantly, other than my herdsmen. So my milkers will tell me all day long, yes, it's a nicer environment, everything, but that's just for cow comfort reasons. The barn is it's mechanically ventilated versus a natural vent barn. And it's just bigger stalls, longer stall beds, all that stuff that went along with it. So I can't really say if they prefer the robot over the parlor or not. Our herd manager, he spends equal time in both facilities. And there's pros and cons to both setups. Oh, my dog decided he needed to bark. But I think that's kind of what it looks like. So
Say hi to everybody.
yes,
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
someone must be here. So so as far as labor goes, was there going to be labor savings for us going to the robots? That seemed to be the big draw, of course. So we can go round and round on.
Right. It's hard to answer, but somebody I think is following up saying, what do you prefer, the robot barn or the conventional?
So I think I prefer both of them, to be honest. There's things I like about both of them, but from a cow side, the robot barn is going to be much more comfortable for them all day long. We allowed these cows to be productive in that facility. We had never really had cows that, you know, were over 200 pounds of milk before. We've had one cow that's done it now, and she's done it consistently. So I think it's more cow comfort than anything. You know, we didn't necessarily see a jump in milk production because of the robots. I would argue that it's more cow comfort.
Very comfortable barn, and it's amazing. It's a robot. Sometimes we talk about robots don't have the same amount of milk fat. You guys are at 4.5, 4.6% fat in Holston. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, there was, I think, a follow-up question there on the labor stuff yet, right? That's still.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've maybe answered this. Is what is your labor number for handling like a robot barn?
Okay.
Yep. So
I think
as
you
far
addressed
as
that.
yeah, and as far as labor hours go per day, you know, so our goal going into this was to be at 12 man hours a day on 480 cows. We're probably running 13 and a half right now. And that's, you know, we already have a feeder, so his labor isn't taken into account for that. And we do hire our breeding out, so we don't do any of that in-house.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Kristin, that I just hear a lot. You put in a guided flow system, and there's a lot of people that are, you know, they're debating or thinking about it. But one of the criticisms of a guided flow system that you hear a lot from free flow advocates are these cows are going to be stuck in this commitment pen for hour after hour after hour, and they just don't get to make their choices. Do you want to comment on why did you pick a guided flow system? And then is that true? Is it not true from your perspective as a manager owner?
Right. So as far as the guided flow goes, why did we go this way? So we spent roughly 2 years on the road looking at robot facilities before we went ahead with what we did. So we looked at free flow, we looked at Lely, we looked at DeLaval. At that time, those were the two we were looking at. What it came down to was efficiencies for us. We felt we watched too many free flow systems where the cows were just coming in to get more pellets and they were getting kicked out of the robot right away. It wasn't time to be milked. And we were after efficiency is what this all came down to. And we were after high production. So the comment about, you know, they get stuck in the commitment pen, I won't say it's true. Every once in a while, do we have a cow that stands in there for a little while, longer than we'd like? Absolutely. But most of the time it's not an issue. And I won't say it's an issue we commonly talk about here. It's not something that we talk about like, hey, like, how do we get these cows out of the pen faster? They come in, they go in the robot, and they go out to feed is what our experience has been.
And that's the same for heifers and mature cows,
Yep.
right? You don't see a difference. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we are getting close to the end here. So I want to respect everybody's time. And I want to thank you everybody for coming today. Both Kristin and I have meetings to go to coming up, so we don't want to hold her back too long. So thank you for attending today and participating and asking questions. I especially want to thank you, Kristin, for again taking the time to join us and talk about your beautiful operation out there in Wisconsin. And I would like to invite everyone here to join us for the next episode next month, May 19th, where we're going to actually go in a different direction and have a small startup dairy with 2 robots that started from scratch, basically. So a little different approach to robotic milking in a way. So thank you again, Kristin, and thank you, everyone.